Sounds a little bit like you're saying that the definition is a little like the Supreme Court's definition of pornography, which is you know it when you see it.
No, we're going to disagree.
I've had kids tell me, I don't like how I feel when I'm on this medication.
These drugs were never designed to be used in children in the first instance.
They're attacking the very foundations of what being human is all about.
And the next morning, he stabbed me.
He stabbed you?
Yes.
How do we know how they're supposed to be when they're altered with medications from very young ages?
This child's life was robbed. It was robbed from us, it was robbed from her.
And it didn't have to happen.
The hiding of information, the deliberate lying about information is the big ethical issue.
I hate to say this. You can't believe the fraud that has been perpetrated on the American public. And it has been a fraud.
Jefferson County 911. Oh, God. Stay on the line with me. Oh, God.
There is suffering and darkness.
He's right outside of here. He's outside? He's outside of this home.
So much darkness in the world.
I am on the floor. Okay. Oh,
to what purpose does it serve?
What happened?
We've had a shooter at the school.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, I'm not, sir.
The ancients would have us believe that the strongest souls emerge out of suffering.
Has anybody been injured? Yes, we have injuries. They're keeping the children in the school.
But that implies we have no choice, that we are victims, afflicted by some karmic retribution.
It doesn't look good right now. Students? Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
Perhaps that is so, but at whose hands do we suffer this darkness? And can we still lead our children to the light? A storm is brewing, a man-made maelstrom. It approaches with the speed of a cyclone, and its reverberations are already being felt. Few times in history has a civilization faced such a fury, such an atmospheric test of ethics. Over the coming days, we must decide as a people if spirit truly exists, whether we're free, and whether we are masters of our own fate. There is no time to waste. The gale draws near.
There are expressions such as ghosts from the nursery. We see some teenager who's perpetrated a hideous crime. And then we're not surprised to read in the newspapers a week later that they had this terribly difficult childhood.
Over the past few decades, the world went mad, or at least our children did. During that time, mums and dads everywhere were told that their children were no longer normal and needed to be drugged. They were, doctors deduced, hyperactive, bipolar, depressed, and millions of parents, many unknowingly, started their children on a dangerous path of biochemically altering their brains.
To call normal children diseased, abnormal, chemically imbalanced, to make patients out of them for profit. This is not only anti-scientific, it is contrary to our Hippocratic oath. It is immoral, and it should be exposed and stopped.
In this modern petrochemical universe, however, neuroscience is very profitable and very much in vogue. Mind and mood-altering drugs are the fastest-growing class of drugs in the world. The quick fix, the magic bullets, have been masterfully sold to us by a plethora of medical literature, distributed via the media and through our schools. Most mental health professionals now claim that many of our children harbor biological defects in their brains defects that can only be controlled by drugs.
Unfortunately, we have people who have swung that far over to the medical model, biological disease model, disease of the brain, that we're going to correct with this drug, just like the antibiotic cures you of pneumonia. And I think that's problematic unless they really do some extraordinary kind of research. I don't think anything's ever going to be strictly biological that has to do with the brain.
I know that many people are determinists. We are simply the unwitting conduits of our neurochemistry, shall I say. But I think most thoughtful people would recognize that however much of a role neurochemistry plays, there are other factors involved in being human.
As a journalist, I was a believer in this story. I wrote stories about how psychiatric disorders are caused by chemical imbalances. I can remember writing a story about there's depression screening day. Isn't that a good thing? Go get screened. So I was a believer in the story of psychiatry as a story of progress. We were learning about the brain, we were learning about the biological underpinnings of these disorders, and we had drugs that fixed that biological problem. That's what I believed as a science writer. So I was stunned. When you actually go to the research, it's not there. That the whole story starts falling apart. This whole public story of advancing understanding the biology of psychiatric disorders, it falls apart so quickly. And what you find